I'd like to welcome our guest speaker for this webinar, Karen Talavera of sponsoring company Synchronicity Marketing. Karen, thank you for being here today. We're glad to have you.
You're so welcome, Nick. Thank you. It's a pleasure to do this. So our participants know a little bit about me and why I've partnered up with you guys and about Synchronicity Marketing. For the past 15 years, I've been an email marketing consultant, a strategist, a speaker, frequently at conferences, and general thought leader in the space. I've been doing training and professional education in this area for, again, 15 years now for a variety of different marketing associations, most notably Direct Marketing Association, but also the Association of National Advertisers and some others like Marketing Profs. I'm involved with the DMA in a couple of ways, not only as a trainer for them, but also through the Email Experience Council, which is basically the industry association for email marketers. They're known as the EEC in short. So for any of you that are interested in understanding some of the initiatives happening in our industry, that's a great place to start. I'm based in South Florida and have had Synchronicity Marketing, for about 12 years now, working with a wide variety of clients, both B2B and B2C, generally mid to larger size brands who are e-commerce centric and dependent on email to grow their business.
Hey, thanks so much, Karen. Thanks for the intro. So today we're going to talk about email lead generation with cold email lists, specifically what it is, its benefits, and the best practices you need to know in order to send successful email lead generation campaigns. So let's get started, everyone. So what is email lead generation? It's when you take a list of cold contacts and send targeted, customized emails to these recipients, converting them from cold contacts that know nothing about your company into warm, sales-ready leads to close. This type of emailing varies greatly from the common email marketing of sending emails to a permission-based contact who are often customers that are fully opt-in to your company.
And Nick, I think it's really about creating relevant content that engages, informs, and educates people about a product or service. So, when we're talking about lead nurturing, we're doing exactly that. We're trying to nurture someone from being at one stage to getting more engaged with us. And a key component of that is content marketing, which we're also going to talk about in this webinar. But often in business, getting someone to respond comes down to reaching people at the right time and reaching out to them more than once. So that's why marketing to a cold list is something that needs to be a dedicated effort. You need to reach out multiple times. There should be a series approach, and that's, again, where a lot of the idea of nurturing comes in. That way, when your contact is ready to take action, they already have you top of mind. They know something about you. And hopefully they might even have some trust with you. And Nick, I know you have a good story about literally how long it can take for nurturing and conversion to happen.
Yep, it's very true. And just being in front of someone, getting your brand in their face, because when they are ready, they will convert. And so this is a great story. But we normally send, 1 or 2 emails a month out to our prospect list. And we had a company receive 32 emails from us over the last 2 years. They've been somewhat interactive with these emails, opening about half of them they received, clicked through on about 30% of them that they did open. But on the 33rd email they received from us, they clicked through, they signed up to view a demo, and they are now a paying client of ClickBack. And the reason I'm telling you this once again is just important to market to your list on a constant basis, because in business it's about timing, and they might have not had a need for our product a year ago, a year and a half ago, but 2 years later down the road, they are now a paying client because we kept on them. We didn't drop that person and now go buy a new list. So we always recommend when you're buying data that you continue marketing to your old list that you still have, because there will be good prospects still left in there.
Absolutely. So, we're going to lay the foundation right from the start here. Email lead generation and nurturing is about turning cold contacts into warm and doing that over a period of time. It is not a spray and pray shotgun approach to marketing. this whole concept of batch and blast is not a best practice, and just sending once will usually not give you the results that you need to achieve on the acquisition side of the spectrum.
Definitely well said, Karen. So let's see how many of you have ever emailed a cold list before. I know that we have a lot of clickback clients in here today, so we know that we're going to have definitely a high number on this one, but let's see how the responses come through anyway. And of course, please answer honestly. Your responses are very confidential. No one will ever see them. So let me just launch the first one here for everyone. And we're just going to hold it up for a few seconds while everyone answers. Okay, and I'm going to close the poll in just a second or two.
Yep, don't be shy.
Okay, we got almost everyone has voted now, and we'll just close that poll up. So very interesting. 86% of you did say yes. We have 14% on no, which not surprising today, having so many clickback clients in the webinar. But now the people that did answer no, we're just going to launch one more poll. So if you haven't emailed a cold list before, why not? So let me just launch that one out. So we're only going to have about 14% of you voting. And not very surprised by this answer too, but too afraid to damage their brand or email reputation. And we did have a few answers as well. Didn't have a proper strategy in place. So thank you, everyone, for answering honestly. And definitely it's important to have a proper strategy in place.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, obviously I do a lot of work specifically in strategy. And even though, that tends to be heavily weighted on the retention side of marketing than acquisition, I would say lack of a strategy is even more important on the acquisition side of things and is the number one thing that's missing. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, like I just talked about, that, if I build it, they will come. If I send once, I'll get an avalanche of responses. Mm-hmm. But you need probably even more strategic thinking on the lead generation side of the world than customer retention. And when you do it right, the benefits of lead gen campaigns are numerous, because like I said, you're informing and educating people over time, letting them get to know you and providing useful information in a variety of formats. For most B2B marketers, that's white papers, case studies, webinars, videos, all of this content that allows, success stories and other customers to speak for you, and allows you to basically sell by way of serving first. And that's a great thing, to keep in mind, and make it your mantra that you want to help before you ask something of your audience. Also, remember where you're at in the relationship with them. If you're starting out cold, well, just like in the real world, you don't propose marriage on the first date. Let somebody get to know you, but keep asking them out to lunch or out to coffee or to take the next step and inviting that continued engagement. Also, manage your expectations. You don't want to necessarily expect instant results. It takes time to build brand awareness and also that know, like, and trust factor, which we're going to talk about more too.
So moving on to the don'ts. Because on the other hand, too many marketers do start out on the wrong foot, especially with cold email lists. They literally scare every contact away from the get-go. Remember, these people do not know your company or your brand very well at all. So failing to give them some time to be familiar and interested will banish you from their inboxes forever. When you come on too strong and too fast, just like in even personal relationships, which we can all probably relate to in our lives, people have a tendency to be annoyed, suspicious. Plus, with the rampant amounts of spam, fraud, and phishing emails, you need to distinguish yourself as legitimate. So avoid rookie tactics by jumping straight into a sales pitch, assuming that your audience knows as much about your company, position in the market, product, or services as you do. And we all see this a lot. I'm sure a lot of us can attest to this, cramming way too much information into one email. Think a series, not a shotgun approach. You want to think 10 emails down the road, not just blasting the same email over and over and expecting a single message a one-time send to carry the day, like we've talked about before. It's just not going to work. But nurturing these people over time is what will bring you success.
Absolutely. So we have another question for you. And, again, we're here to share and learn, so don't be shy about answering honestly. All responses are confidential, and there's no shame in having tried anything. So, Nick, go ahead and launch the second poll.
Perfect. So let's see who has committed one of the don'ts.
So for those of you who have emailed a cold list before, have you ever committed one of these don'ts, and if so, which one? And we've given you 5 choices here. You went outright asking for the sale right away, or you only sent a single message, didn't segment, and so forth. Take a second and pick one of those if you've done one.
All right, we're going to close the poll in just a moment here. All right, I'm just going to close her up now. Thank you, everyone, for answering. So surprising results. We had about 50% of you didn't segment, blasted the same thing over and over. 25% sent one message only, and we had 15% outright asked for a sale. It was probably just being overindulgent, going too hard into the quick sale.
Okay, and this points directly back to strategy, right? That when you have a strategy in place, you're going to be doing things like segmentation or intelligent segmentation.
Definitely. So, and very important to know your audience, their job titles, pain points, their size of company, as much data as you can get from some of these data providers. The revenues are important as well. You want to base the new list you're buying on ideal customers that you already do have. So targeted lists always outperform non-targeted ones because, of course, we're targeting our best prospects. And with email lead generation, it's all about quality, not quantity. So buying a list of 100,000 when really maybe you should be buying a list of 20 or 30,000 recipients to send to is going to yield you better results. So the more you do know about your audience, the more you can now convert these cold contacts into leads and new revenue for your company. Don't send cold emails from your corporate domain or IP. You do not want to jeopardize your corporate email, your website, and daily business communications. So for email lead generation, we recommend setting up an alternate domain so you're not jeopardizing your corporate domain. So let's say your corporate website is acme.com. It's a best practice that you set up acme.net or acme.biz for your corporate email server. And then you're going to go out and register unique marketing domains, such as, say, acmemarketing.com, acmeemails.com, for the reply domain used in your email lead generation campaigns. It's also important to health check and anti-spam your list, as no list is 100% accurate. People do change jobs, and it's a good practice to regularly scrub and maintain your list for optimal deliverability and, of course, lowering your bounces. The majority of marketing automation or ESPs, email service providers, as we all know, do not allow purchase email lists. You don't want your cold contacts impacting your IP or domain's reputation in your opt-in software. Additionally, sending cold and opt-in data together will reduce your potential deliverability of your opt-in campaigns. So, as a best practice, you should separate your cold and opt-in contacts. And of course, like our clickback clients know, one way by doing this is using clickback. Clickback can sit in front of your existing marketing automation or ESP, email service provider, with the goal being to drive leads or get the recipient to opt in by completing a form on your website and now moving this contact over into your opt-in software. Like Karen talked about earlier, the form could be to download a white paper, an ebook, take a survey, enter a draw I don't like so much, but join a webinar is important. Good way to get people to convert. This way you're protecting your opt-in contacts and your opt-in solution from being shut down by your provider for violating their internal policies on purchase data.
And Nick, just so we leave no doubt in anyone's mind, and I'm not saying this just because I'm here with you guys on this webinar, but I'm kind of a Switzerland out there as a consultant in the email world.
Yes.
The last thing you want to do is damage your deliverability, because you're not thinking strategically about your acquisition marketing, your lead generation through email. If you're determined and you know it's a great fit for you to use email for lead generation and for reaching out to people you don't have an existing business relationship with, then invest the time and money to do it right and not burn your ability to mail your regular list, because you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face here.
Yes.
And the problems can be really serious.
Definitely. Yeah, and who really wants to switch opt-in providers when you've got all your data in there that you've been protecting and using for years?
Switching ESPs, I'll just say it, I'll be blunt, it's a pain in the rear.
Yes.
It's painful even under the best of circumstances when you need to upgrade to a better provider. You don't want to be forced into having to do it.
I'm sure you've been through that lots with customers, Karen.
I've seen the pain. Yep. I've seen their pain, felt their pain.
So we're going to move on to our subject lines, which is always something people want to talk about, and there's just so much debate about this in the industry. But of course, long-winded subject lines will add to your spam score, and they will impact potential deliverability. The most direct and specific subject lines do get the highest open rates, and they're usually on the shorter side, under 50 characters. Remember that while long subject lines can work well for audiences that know you and love you, they can backfire in email prospecting, as they'll be truncated in many mobile viewing and preview environments. So make sure that you're relevant, you're persuasive, and timely. Don't sell the reader what's in the email. Tell them. Try to create some curiosity. One of the best campaigns we had here at ClickBack at all times used a subject line that created curiosity of what was in the email. This can be a tough one, but trying to avoid spammy words in your subject lines, such as anything in all caps, exclamation points. Try not to include words like percentage off, reminder, last chance, donate, and today, as these words will increase your spam score as well. And once again, these words can work good for opt-in marketing, but for cold marketing, not a good way to start off a relationship. And also, do not write deceptive subject lines or use forward or RE in front of them, as this is not a best practice and will just create complaints. Words that do work well: news, video, bulletin, and there are many, many others. Karen, what do you think about using the word free in subject lines, but with cold marketing, of course?
Well, there's all kinds of theories you'll read about out there about the effectiveness of the word free. Some people say it's great, it's the most powerful word in direct response marketing, and it is very powerful. Other people say in email it's the kiss of death, don't ever use it. So I'll give people a couple of pointers. One, if you are offering something that is truly free, from a legal standpoint, it needs to be truly free. There can be no required purchase, free trial period with an eventual purchase, credit card number provided. It has to be truly no obligation. Mm-hmm. The second is that there's also lots of other ways to say free without using that word. So you could say complimentary, you could say no obligation, you could say included, mm-hmm. And so forth. And second, it can perform differently on the acquisition side, acquisition marketing versus retention marketing, because remember, on retention marketing, you're talking to an audience that's already your customers. Again, they know you, they hopefully trust you, if not love you, so you're not going to have typically some of the either familiarity, complaint, or deliverability risks and issues that you might have on the acquisition side. So you do need to tread a little more cautiously in lead generation.
Yep, definitely. So we're going to move on to some subject line stats. So don't just take our word for it. We want to back up what we're saying. So a Destro research shows that 69% report email as spam based solely on the subject line. So that's why we talk about it so much. 40% of emails are opened on a mobile device first. That is a standing average. The mobile screen does only fit 4 to 7 words. Subject lines with 3+ words are opened 15% less versus subject lines with 1 to 2 words. So end result here is we want to keep our subject lines short as possible, but to the point, and we want to try to create some sort of curiosity when possible.
Now, we promised that we would get back to this idea of content marketing because, you know, once people are past seeing the header information of your email, who it's from, and the subject line, well, hopefully there's something there that's resonating for them enough to open the email. But, boy, when they open it, you know, there really should be something useful and valuable there. And that's where content marketing comes in lead generation. Content marketing is, simply put, giving away something valuable in order to eventually sell something related. So like we talked about with a lot of B2B marketers creating content like white papers and webinars and even trainings, they do that to attract and engage a clearly defined and well understood target audience with the objective of delivering them a solution and hopefully also qualifying whether or not they're really interested. So something valuable means something like education, information, or entertainment in a form that people can consume online. Now, the psychological angle of this is that by continually inviting people to engage with content, to inform and educate themselves and hear success stories and so forth, that's a generally low commitment action compared to asking them to commit to a sale. What we're doing is conditioning a pattern of response in our target audience. And let me elaborate on that a little bit more. If anybody is familiar with behavioral psychology, then you'll understand that we're trying to get at the root of why people do what they do. And as marketers, we want to make it comfortable and natural for people to respond to our marketing communications. So the reason content can be so compelling and improving response is because it generates this KLT factor, which stands for not just my initials, but by sheer coincidence, but stands for know, like, and trust. Okay, so content helps your target audience get to know you because you're helping them and serving them. They're going to like you. And it's also building credibility, which is where the trust comes in. This is exactly how you sell by way of serving first. Okay, so if you've achieved this, then over time, when you continue offering the promise of worthwhile information, they're not going to even think about, they're not going to hesitate to open and click through on your email. They're going to do it automatically. And that's a conditioned pattern of favorable response. And it was developed by you doing content marketing. All of this lowers the anxiety and the discomfort involved with eventually responding to higher commitment actions, like maybe requesting a demo, having a call with an account rep or an agent, or having an on-site sales call or getting a quote or what have you. Nick, I think you might have a story to share here that has to do with permission and how that relates to this.
Well, and it's just starting off on the right foot with a cold list. And so many marketers, like we said earlier, they start off on the wrong foot, just going right into the hard sell and thinking that your audience knows as much about you as you do. Now, one of the things we do recommend, and it's a nice way to touch your cold list first, and your first email to a cold list will always have the highest bounce rate and probably one of the smaller open rates. But a good thing we recommend is to do what we call a permission pass email or a courtesy email. And really all this email is stating to the contact that this is who we are, this is what we do, here's a link to our website, and if you've never liked to receive follow-up emails from us again, please opt out at the bottom. Then it's a good and a best practice to wait a solid week before now communicating with the list again. That way you're just showing people a little bit of courtesy, saying, hey, I have your contact, I sent you something, but if you don't want to hear from us, please opt out. And you know what? It's good for you as well. You can get these people off your list who really have no interest in your product, brand, or service, and you can move on with marketing to people that do care, that are interactive with your emails.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great that you share that because we do have to think about sometimes, whittling down our target audience. And so I want to harken back to some, sort of basics and fundamentals of good sales and marketing because it does come down to knowing your audience or knowing as much about your target market as you possibly can based on what you already know about your customers. Look at the people who've already bought from you. And after understanding their consideration path or process, you're going to be able to know what triggers it in the first place. That's really job one. What gets somebody interested in you in the first place? It might be a specific problem that they have. It might be just the fact that they know you exist. It might be that they're already in the market and using your product or service, and they're ready to go to a new provider. The second thing you need to know is what type of consideration path your product or service fits into, and I'm going to tell you about 4 different types, because there are some that are shorter and simpler, others that are longer and more complex, and you need to know what path your potential customers are walking with you. And once you know that, you're also going to be able to determine what encourages them to keep going down that path, as well as what discourages, stalls, or stops them. Now, that 4th point you see here is often called, in the sales lingo, barriers to sale. If you know barriers to sale, you can start crafting email marketing messages to help overcome those. You don't have to always rely just on your salesperson or sales force to handle that. So let me elaborate more on this idea of consideration paths. And there are a lot of different terms that you might hear this concept explained in. You might hear customer journey. We're talking about the same thing. I like to call it consideration paths because ultimately somebody does go down a purchase consideration path when they decide to buy something. And it's either going to be quick and relatively short, winding, which also might be not necessarily long, but have some twists and turns, or it's going to be long or long and winding, which gets to a greater degree of complexity. Now, if, like many B2B marketers, you are in a long or long and winding consideration path, or at least that's where your products and services lend themselves to, you're going to have prospects that are, in a sales funnel for often 6 months to a year or more. Like Nick explained with the story of one of the clickback clients. It was 2 years of getting messages. So you can use your email marketing to accelerate, enable, or streamline the process, and also keep in touch with people along what might be a really lengthy journey. And we recognize that, and that's why, again, we're coming back to saying you absolutely have to be emailing people more than once, but you also have to be looking at how engaged they are with you over the long haul. Because if you've got a long and winding consideration path and you've structured email messaging to reflect that, and eventually somebody just stops engaging with you, I think the question becomes, do you want to keep following up?
Mm-hmm. That brings us to our 3rd poll. Well, let's hear from the audience. It's the vast majority of you are B2B marketers. Think of a core product or service of your company which you could market to prospects via email or nurture prospects for. What type of consideration path does it have? Let me watch the next poll for everyone. Okay, we're just going to close out the poll in just a moment here. Thank you, everyone, once again for your responses.
I bet we're not going to be surprised, huh?
I'm getting a little shocked myself at looking at these right now. So I'm going to close the poll out. We actually had 46% answer quick. So maybe we have some.
Wow.
Yeah, that's first time we've seen that. Most of the time we are witnessing long and winding, but we have 19% at winding, 15% at long, and 19% at long and winding. So
yeah,
surprising results today.
Okay. And just to add a little more definition to that, if it's a quick consideration path, that is the case for many that are in the retail world or direct selling something online, even if that's not necessarily a retail product. So even at higher price points, sometimes the consideration path can be quick if it's a direct purchase.
Yeah, maybe comes at a necessity or need.
You're right.
Yep. So let's move on to some nurturing, which is very important. We want to back up something before we present. So Forrester research states a 50% increase and a 33% lower cost per lead through nurturing. The Aberdeen Group finds a 2 times win rate with a 47% higher average order value. Chief marketing officers generate a higher quantity and quality of sales lead. Soft sell provide informative content like we've been talking about today. Case studies, white papers, testimonials, and perpetually drip market on your cold contacts until they're ready to convert. This way, when they are, you are top of mind and you are in their face.
And since we're talking about lead nurturing, I want to share some best practices for that. Because any lead nurturing series, we talked about what nurturing is, but it definitely has some component parts because it should begin with introducing, orienting, and guiding people. So we don't want to jump into the middle. We want to let them know how to get started with us. Introduce ourselves, let them know about some initial resources and ease them into a relationship. Now, once they're engaging with us, then we want to educate and inform, which means you're going to need to know a little bit about the kind of helpful, useful content you have and how that maps to people's needs for information in different parts of the sales cycle or at different points on the consideration path. You're going to want to understand which facts, features, and benefits are most relevant to different prospective customers' needs or problems. Now, after you've started giving them that kind of information, then it's time to build that confidence and really bolster that know, like, and trust factor. How do you do that? You build credibility, answering the questions that people will have in their heads about why should I choose your solution over others? Or what have other people, what have my peers done in a similar situation and how have they succeeded? Naturally, that lends itself to things like success stories, case studies, and testimonials. And finally, remember, there may be those points on the consideration path where people stall or stop, and we need to overcome friction or resistance or lack of momentum by reassuring them and validating what they need to know to make the right choice. And frankly, just telling them how to evaluate vendors and make the right decision is a piece of useful information and content that you can convey without necessarily pitching yourself outright in the process. Finally, don't forget, at some point we've got to ask them to take action and to make those larger commitment decisions like getting in fully into the sales process and not just consuming our content.
Yep, don't be afraid to ask.
That's right.
It's nothing new, like we've been talking today, that content marketing continues to be seen as the viable marketing technique. The reason for this is because having great content delivers great results. It's why content marketing has become one of the leading marketing tactics used online today. But it's not just about the content, but the context as well. So make sure you're speaking directly to recipients' interests on how it pertains to their business, and most importantly, what's in it for them. The more your content can be about the information or value you're providing, rather than a direct pitch on your company, the better. Make sure you're providing fresh new content on a regular basis, as sending that same message over and over will yield less and less results each and every time you send it. And keep your links short and to the point, ensuring you have one clear call to action so your emails are not muddied everywhere and people don't know what to do with them once they receive them. And make sure you're focusing on facts versus opinions. People want content that can be backed up. So claiming to be a one of a kind, that's a Me Too statement and should be avoided. Client testimonials are so important, whether you're using them on an email or a landing page, but make sure that you have full disclosure when using them. And full disclosure means the person's first name, last name, their title, and the company name. That's the way to do them correctly. It also helps give your readers a sense that other people are having great success with the product or service you're offering, so that they would too. So client testimonials, in short, are very powerful, but if they're not used correctly, they mean nothing. So make sure you're using them wisely and you will reap benefits from them. Studies prove that personalized body messages outperform non-personalized messages. In fact, according to eConsultancy, marketers see an average increase of 20% in sales when using personalized web experiences. However, subject line personalization does have mixed results over time. Internal data has seen it negatively impacts deliverability and so-so results. And this is with cold email marketing again, everyone. But experiment with your audience to see what works best for you. Karen, there's a lot of innovation and emerging trends in personalized content for email. What can you share with us you are seeing lately, just kind of the newest thing in the industry?
Well, the newest thing is that personalization is going beyond just name personalization or company personalization and salutations, but it's actually resulting in what's called dynamically customized content. So if we know something about, our target audience, whether it's when we're in the cold list marketing phase or after we've already reached out to them and they've started to opt in on their own, which, by the way, during that opt-in process is a great opportunity to learn more about them. Now we can start to customize content literally on a message-by-message, person-by-person basis by programming in different headlines or different images for different types of people on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they are a potential buyer of, commercial farm equipment and we know they have a certain size farm, we can be educating them about one particular line of machinery versus another that would be suitable to somebody with a small farm versus a large farm.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that's more complex, but there are solutions and value-added providers out there that actually make it really easy for you to create your own content library and generate the HTML code you need to automatically produce customized versions of your creative. So literally, message by message, as you're emailing a list or segment, your design gets put together dynamically. It could be different for every person on the list based on their attributes. Now, think for a second about how much that would increase the relevancy of what you say. So you won't have this one-size-fits-all creative approach, but instead, you'll literally be personalizing a conversation to somebody based on what you know about them.
Yep. The more customized your content, the better results you're going to get.
Without a doubt. Which gets us into design, Nick.
And this is very important, which I think a lot of companies fail to do, but you want to make sure that you include a mixture of graphics and text, not only for technology and tracking purposes, but also for deliverability. By sending one large image, this will cause your emails to be filtered out as spam. So you need to have a good balance of images and text ratio to get the best deliverability. So even when we're telling people to send out these business letter type formats, you should include graphics to make it look professional, like company logos, social media logos. You could have links to your corporate Facebook page, Twitter, LinkedIn accounts. If the email is coming from an individual at your company, add their photo to the signature. It just adds in a little more personalization that there's a real live person at the end of this email. So that brings us also to the from and reply names. The from name should always be someone's first and last name or the company's name, nothing else. The reply to should be a person's email address if the email was from them, so the from name was the first and last name. If it's from the company, your reply to could be a generic email like an info ad or sales ad. So when people reply back to the email campaign, they're going into this bucket and then getting pushed over to sales. But also keep in mind that you're going to use that alternate domain that you have set up different from your corporate website like we talked about earlier. And with anything, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was just going to run in and say, as you're concepting creative for your campaigns, think about building in some testing and then track and analyze results. So you can find not only maybe your best subject line, which is an easy thing to test, but the sweet spot with a particular audience for one of your brands or particular segment. So you might, find that a different design or a different image is resonating a lot better, or a specific offer is better. And you could do some of that testing in small quantities before you roll out to the remainder of your list, which could be pretty sizable.
Right, and we always talk about subject line testing, but body content testing is just as important, if not more important. It's really hard to pinpoint the best days to send emails. We get this question every day of the week here, of course. And it's different for each audience, business, product offering, and the list goes on and on. But research from Marketing Sherpa indicated that for weekdays, best email sending day is Thursday, not Tuesday like everyone believes, because Tuesday is a very high sending volume day. So you're competing for the inbox and your recipient's attention. The best times we see for sending are early morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. But remember, it's important to run your own tests and formulate a hypothesis to determine times and days that work best for you and your list. Weekends, tricky one. They usually do have the lowest volume sending days on the B2B side, but experiment to identify whether these days work for you. From internal data, few of our clients sent on a weekend and saw best results. If you have an upcoming event like a webinar, try sending on a Sunday morning. We've seen really good open rates then, 10 a.m. to noon. If you're targeting higher ups at companies, CEOs, VPs, C-level, a lot of clients have shared with us they received the best results, conversions, and open rates on Sunday afternoons to evenings. And a lot of them believe that, and I believe it as well, that during the week these people are so busy. So for them to actually take the time to read about a new product, brand, service, something they would actually take advantage of, it's hard to grasp their attention during the week when they have many other priorities in front of them. So, I know a lot of CEOs that, Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, they're already back in work mode. So it's a good time to try these emails when you're going to these higher ups. Karen, what are your thoughts on frequency of emails? Because not only is it important to pick when, but frequency is very important as well.
Right. So in your initial outreach to a cold list, it's really hard to justify daily. Chances are you're going to alienate people right away because that's just too much when they don't know you. Weekly is ideal. You could go a couple of times a week if you had a really well-strategized series, say a 5 or 6-part series, and you space that out 3 or 4 days apart. That can work. Again, we're talking about B2B lead generation, so we've got to keep in mind, even though people might check in email on the weekends, they're really not as actively engaged as they are Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm. At a minimum, now once you get people past the cold stage and onto your list, at a minimum, please send them something monthly, just to kind of keep your finger on the pulse, keep the relationship alive, and then adjust frequency based on how engaged they are. So if they opt into your list because they're interested in something they saw in an initial offer or solicitation, that might launch a whole new track for them. It might be a lead nurturing series that's coming once a week for 7 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever it is. But when that's done, you still want to make sure you add them to some kind of baseline communication. And that's, again, what I would say at least monthly.
Yep. And I mean, us with our cold list here at Clickback, we normally send to our cold list, our prospect list, we're sending a minimum 1 message a month, if not 2. But if we are only sending 1 message a month, we're going to have trigger drip emails off some of the links in the message so that we're sending follow-up emails to people that engage. They open the email, they click through on something, so therefore they'll receive follow-up emails that month because they're engaging with us. We want to, you want to strike when the iron is hot. Make sure as well you're sending people to relevant and targeted pages. If you have the technology to do it and the manpower to do it, use personalized landing pages to help with your conversions. And be aware when collecting information on a landing page, try to require as few fields as possible. If you can keep it to 3, that's ideal. If there's too many fields, we all know you're not going to enter your information. If you want to even go one step further, there is ways of passing data onto a landing page and pre-filling a form for someone. But you have to make sure that you do have a box there that they can agree to the terms and conditions, and then they actually hit the button to submit. But this just makes it nice and easy for your people to get their white paper, opt in, whatever they may be doing. And make sure your design and your message and tone are very consistent from your email to the landing page. Make sure you're having one goal, one message, one action the recipient should take. Keep it very clean and clear. And ask yourself, do they know what to do with this email when they receive it? Because that is the absolute worst thing when there's just too many links, too many things going on in a message. Like we said, clean and clear, to the point. And of course, lots of testing to make sure that what you're doing is causing reactions. Contacts really want to feel important. So creating these follow-up emails can foster stronger relationships with your contacts. This way, they move through the sales funnel quicker. So think about ways in which you can follow up with cold contacts like we've talked about. Creating a drip campaign or process. Make sure that you're nurturing unqualified contacts until they're sales ready. And when possible, try only to send qualified leads to sales. Don't want to waste the salesperson's time. You don't want to waste the prospect's time. So building rapport with the contacts from start will ensure that you become sales ready. So when the rep does follow up with them, if you do a follow-up process, whether you're making phone calls, one-off emails, they'll already know who your brand is, maybe who the rep is, and they'll be very receptive to this contact. So this is another way of nurturing leads with content, with follow-ups, and you can build this entire dialogue through email rather than a one-off shot effort. Karen, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yep, again, I'm going to take it back to strategy. Map out your messaging series and a progression of content before you even send the first campaign. Mm-hmm. So going back to those consideration paths or journeys, this is sometimes called an email dialogue track, and it might even have multiple branches. So as an example, if you send message number 1 to your cold list and a certain percentage of people open and click, these are known as your responders, they might deserve a different follow-up effort than non-responders. Maybe responders to an invitation to watch a short video after they do so are then ready for a webinar, whereas non-responders just need a second chance reminder to see the video. Mm-hmm. The two branches will get different follow-up emails inviting them to take different next steps in engaging with you, and that could go on, for several messages. So yes, it can be more challenging to think this through, but you also want to take people down a path of invitations to content or specific actions. And like Nick, like you said, yes, please make it abundantly clear for them what you want them to do and pick one thing. People love clarity.
Yes.
So do that until they're well qualified enough for a phone conversation, because if you keep getting them to engage with more and more in different types of content, you're also qualifying them. So there's value in looking at that for you to determine really who's worth your more expensive time and effort. So it is time for our final poll.
So I'm just going to launch the poll. So how confident are you in your team's ability to strategize a successful email lead generation nurturing program? Let me just launch that out for everyone. We always do get mixed results with this one, so always interesting to see how the audience responds. Okay, we're going to close off the poll in just a second or two here. All right, thank you everyone for your responses. A little bit different than usual. So we have 63% say they're pretty confident, but still might be missing some sort of action. And then our next highest answer was at 19% that they're not very confident and that they feel they would use.
Well, that is certainly encouraging, and I'm glad to hear that. But yeah, no matter how much practice you've had in strategy or in working on the acquisition side of email, there's always more that could be done, right? There's always the optimization goal.
Definitely.
So in wrapping up today, I want to make an offer to anyone there that might be struggling with strategy or with understanding how to take things to the next level. I'm offering what I call a free email breakthrough session. This is really a free phone consult where we'll discuss any of your challenges, your goals, your needs, and identify some hidden or missed opportunities for improving the revenue impact from your email marketing programs. If you're interested in scheduling this with me, I need you to reach out either by email or phone, and you can see the contact information here on the slide. You can email info@synchronicitymarketing.com or call 561-738-5138 and just mention clickback free session, and I'll follow up and schedule that with you. There's also a form on my website if you prefer to go that way. You can see the link here, but I'm happy for that offer to be out there for anybody who's attending this webinar live or listening to the recording. If you need some help, reach out, and we'll see what we can do for you.
Hey, thank you, Karen. I appreciate you coming on the webinar today. I appreciate more that you're willing to do these 1-hour sessions with some of our clients, hopefully getting them to convert more cold contacts into opt-ins or new revenue for their company. Just glad you can do that for everyone. I know that we have some of Karen's clients on the line as well today. So if you've never heard about Clickback, you'd like to talk more to us about the software, possibly see a demo, you can go to clickback.com and sign up to view a demo. Also, if you just want to possibly talk a little bit more about where you want to buy a list from, who you've dealt with in the past, and just maybe some of our recommendations. We do work with 50 well-known data providers in the industry, so the reps here at ClickBack can give you some guidance on who's the best data provider to talk to on what your list recommendations would be. We're always here to help, so you can go to our website or you can call in anytime. So we're going to move to the Q&A. And of course, we're going to stay on the line today as long as we need to. Everyone can ask questions as they'd like. Just if you go to your question panel there, you can send them all in. And I know we do have some questions sitting here as well. So I have one here from Carla. Carla had asked, which I somewhat just entered, reputable data providers. Who does ClickBack recommend? Carla, if you just like to go to our website, fill out a demo request. One of our reps will be glad to help you on a reputable data provider you could go to. We have another one from Carl as well. She's asked, if you already damaged deliverability, how do you correct it? Karen, you want me to take that one on, or would you like me to?
Well, there's definitely no short answer to that question.
There isn't.
but there are ways to correct it. That's the good news. So, yeah, if you've damaged deliverability, honestly, my number one recommendation is that you work with a deliverability expert. There are consultants that specialize in that in the industry, and do at least a mini assessment of what is it specifically. Get sort of an audit of what specifically was it that affected your deliverability negatively. What you don't want to do is just keep hopping from one sending server or IP address or block of IP addresses to another and consecutively and continually burning them out. Okay, because it is worth it to stop, pause, assess, and understand what went wrong. And without knowing exactly what the problem might be, I can't give you, a one-size-fits-all answer, because if it's something to do with your content, that's an easy fix. If it's something to do with the permission quality of your list, that's a whole different story. If it's something to do with your sending infrastructure, there's yet a different remedy for that. Nick, do you want to add anything to that?
No, that's very well said, Karen. That's very true. And also sometimes it's just giving it a little bit of time, just from a technology point of view. If you're getting on the radars of spam filters and you've maybe sent some content you really shouldn't have sent, what happens is they're almost taking snapshots of your email. And it's not a bad idea almost just to wait a solid week or two before communicating with your list again. Your deliverability and reputation will eventually come back over time naturally. So sometimes it's just actually waiting a few weeks in between messaging. Okay, we have a couple other ones coming in here. Also, just an easy one to answer here. Yes, we'll be sending an electronic copy of today's presentation to everyone. You'll probably receive that tomorrow by 5 p.m. Also, another great question about integrations with platforms. So yes, it's important to have form integrations set up if your end goal is turning a cold contact into an opt-in. So you can enable these in ClickBack by talking to your account rep. So if you're driving people to a form, let's say the form was hosted by something like Infusionsoft, HubSpot, Marketo, or maybe using something more basic like a Constant Contact or a MailChimp, we can integrate the forms together so that when you're driving people through ClickBack and they make these actions to fully opt in by downloading something, taking that action, you can set up the form integration. It's a nice, smooth, easy process to do. So I would recommend doing that, but you can reach out to your account rep at ClickBack to do that.
I see another good question here. Can you comment on attracting prospects to our websites versus email marketing? Realize doing both may be good, but will people really want to go to the website versus being sent an email? So we might need a little clarity on that, but I think there are, I'm going to take this up to the 30,000-foot view of acquisition marketing. There are a variety of things anybody who's investing in acquisition marketing should be doing to get new leads and prospects into the funnel. And email marketing may just be one component. So some of the other major components are going to be paid search, organic search, display advertising, co-registration efforts, affiliate marketing. All of those things basically have some sort of offer and call to action out there and attract people to an opt-in process and or content whereby you can then follow up and market to them.
Yep.
So if the question is, how effective is email versus some of those other things, it all depends on how you can best reach your target audience, because sometimes it's really hard to find them on an email list, or there just isn't going to be one on the market. Other times, that's going to pay off even better for you. But if you use that variety and that mix of efforts, by all means, please track the effectiveness from these different sources and track your cost per lead and how well they convert. Because the other truth is that from some channels or some acquisition efforts, you get higher quality and lower quantity.
Yes.
And vice versa.
Yes, definitely. And you know what, Karen, you could probably speak to this, and a lot of time email marketers don't get credit for leads because these people have been sent numerous emails, but sometimes they just pick up the phone and make a phone call. And if they weren't qualified correctly by that salesperson, and no one really figured out that, hey, they're on a cold list already, email marketing or email lead generation does not get credit for these sales. So it's important to make sure you have right processes in place just to track where these leads are really coming from.
Right. Now, if you're doing an email campaign to a cold list, then if the question is, where do you send people? Do you send them to a website? I mean, that all depends on your business model. Again, we talked a lot about content marketing today, and the fact that you probably want to be sending them to an opt-in invitation that leads to something useful and helpful. But very shortly after that, you may be asking them to make a phone call, or come into a point of sale, or come into a physical location.
Yep. I'm going to answer a couple here, Karen, that really I think apply to us, but I'll start with this first two here. Ask advice about cold list by country, such as the domain suffix. You're right, Antoine, that is the best way to figure out which country they are from. And yes, I would recommend trying to segment your list by country, of course, because of time zone. Maybe there's a language barrier. Maybe there's a different way products are sold in one country versus another. So yes, I'd recommend separating your cold list by the suffix on the domain. It's one of the easier ways to do it. There's more advanced ways through email verification and technology, but it can become expensive. But there are ways to do it through email verification, seeing where that server resides that holds that email address. So that is another way to do it, by doing verification by pinging the server. Another really good question here from Christina. She said, at one point, do we switch from our new .net domain to our regular .com domain? Well, I'm going to start right at the beginning with this one, Christina. Let's say your website is clickback.com. For all the sales reps and your normal emailing within the company, it would be something like clickback.net. That would be what you would use for everyone's corporate email in the entire company. Now, when it comes to sending out email lead generation campaigns, you want to go register something fully unique that's different from your corporate domain. So it wouldn't be like clickback.org. It would be clickback. It could be clickbackmarketing.com that you would use as your reply domain in your email campaign. So it needs to be unique and different than your business domain, because you don't want to associate the two, because there is a small chance of getting blacklisted. So we don't want to blacklist our corporate email communications or your corporate website. So I hope that answers your question on that. If you need more detail, you can reach out to me directly. I can always set up a call with you to discuss that. And it looks like we're coming down the end of our questions here, but another great one from Joseph. He's asking industry standard percentage open rate for B2B cold emails. Really, really tough to find these stats. We've tried numerous times. I think you'd say the same thing, right, Karen?
Yeah, I would, because most of the reports and studies out there that are publishing this kind of thing are doing it on the retention side of marketing.
That's right.
They're not looking at cold list. I mean, probably the best answer you can give is just what you guys see, if you're privy to that throughout your client base.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would say, too, with most of our clients, we want them to be receiving a minimum of a 3% open rate. I mean, we feel our better clients are getting open rates in the 8 to 12% area. But if you're falling in between 3 and 7, you're doing as much as you can correctly. And that is a pretty standard in the B2B. I know that's a very wide range, but that's somewhat standard. That's what we see as the norm here at Clickback as well.
Good.
Well, it looks like the questions have slowed up. Once again, I'll just invite anyone. You can always reach out to Karen or I directly, whether you want to email us, give us a call, go to our websites. We are always happy to answer any questions you might have. Something slipped through the cracks today or hits you tomorrow morning in the shower and you need an answer, just reach out to us and we'll help you out.
And Nick, I apologize if I missed it, but I know we always get the question of, is this webinar going to be available or an online version archived? And I'll let you address that because I think the answer is yes.
Of course, yeah, we'll be sending everyone a copy tomorrow. If for some reason you do not receive your copy of it via email, just reach out to me directly and I will send you over the link. So I'm going to wrap things up. Once again, Karen, thank you so much for not only coming and presenting today, we're always glad to have you, but also inviting some of your clients to learn a little bit more about email lead generation.
It's always a pleasure, and I hope I'll be speaking with several of you in an email breakthrough session. And thanks again to ClickBack for being such a great partner that I can refer to when my clients are in difficult situations and need a reliable solution for acquisition email.
Thanks so much, Karen, and thank you everyone for attending today. I hope you learned lots, and like we said, if you ever need us, we're always here for you, Nick or Karen. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.